Shalom and welcome to Education in a Time of War. My name is Rachel Raz, and I'm delighted to have today with me Aviva Stein. Aviva is a student at Umass Amherst in Massachusetts, and we are going to learn a little bit about the impact of the war on students at Umass Amherst. For those of you that are joining us for the first time to this podcast, I started it following the October 7 war in Israel with the Hamas terror organization that later on expanded to also war with the Hezbollah and few other groups, the Houthis in Yemen and other things. We are several months into the war, and sometimes we think that it's like 5,000 miles away, and what does it have to do with college campuses in America? But it does. Unfortunately, and we're going to learn a little bit from you about what you see on college campus. For those of you that it's your first time joining us, the goal of this podcast, we have several goals. One of them is to document and share what's going on in different parts of the world in education because of the war. The second thing, to meet some inspiring people. So I think that there's a lot to learn from you, Aviva, but also some best practices for education, what other people can learn from this, can adopt from this, maybe for other colleges or for other institution and individual. So thank you, Aviva, for joining me. This is a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
Yes, so Aviva, you joined Umass Amherst because it's ranked #1 for food science. Yes. And this is your passion and love and your goal in life. So tell us a little bit about food science and what you're doing at UMass. And I know that you also prepared for us a slide with some photos and highlights.
So as Rachel said, my name is Aviva. I'm currently a junior in my third year at Umass Amherst in Massachusetts, and I'm studying food science. A lot of people don't really know what food science is. I personally think it's the best thing in the entire world. It basically combines chemistry, biology, microbiology, physics, everything related to kind of science and real life application together, and really looks at food. A lot of my classes are focused on, product development as well as food safety. And so I'll pull up some photos to kind of give you guys a little insight into what food science is. Let's see, we are, alrighty. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So on the left is a photo from my first research experiment. I was working in a research lab looking at plant-based yogurt. This was in the fall of my freshman year in December 2021. What I loved about this lab was that I was working with upperclassmen and grad students. I was the youngest person in the lab, and they all called me the freshman. It was a fun time. On the top right is a photo from the Institute of Food Technologists, which is one of the leading kind of programs and institutions for food science, and they accredit my program here at UMass. They host an annual conference every summer, and so I got to go last summer as a delegation from the UMass Food Science Department. What I loved about the conference was I got to network with leading experts in the field. It was just an incredible experience that I was so grateful to have. On the bottom left of the two photos, that's a photo of me in a lab last year. I was pouring something to measure and create a product. So a lot of these skills, as I said, that I'm learning in my lab is the stuff I'm then going to go and learn how to do when I'm in industry. It's the stuff that I need to know how to be an excellent food scientist. So my program is preparing me for that. And then on the bottom right, that bottom corner is a photo. I was honored at a scholarship luncheon in October. I got an award for some of the accomplishments I have in food science.
Yeah, and I know I can also say that I had the opportunity to even eat at the dining hall at Umass Amherst, and this is like nothing. I highly recommend everybody in some point. It's like the level of food and healthy and sophistication. It's really a great model to many places.
UMass does amazing with food. They're #1 dining for I think 5 or 6 years in a row. #1 food science. It's a great place if you love food.
That's amazing. And I know that also in every opportunity you do internship and you're really looking at yourself as becoming a scientist, and you want to do also a PhD. And so you came to UMass as a student. to learn and to grow. And I look at you as a citizen of the United States and the world that I can't wait to hear, I'm sure, great things about you and what you do with food technology and all of that. But I know that you also chose Umass Amherst for other reasons. That was like number one because of the field and what you really want to do. I know that you are also Jewish and you chose it because of the Jewish life. So maybe you can tell us, what is so first of all, why you needed it and what kind of Jewish life you have on college campus.
Of course. So as Rachel, as you said, right, like one of the big reasons, in addition to research and food science, that I chose UMass was because of Jewish life. I knew going into college that I needed a vibrant Jewish community. And for most students, that's often a Hillel house on their campus. So at UMass, we have an excellent Hillel. The UMass Hillel is just a vibrant community. We have Shabbat dinners on Friday nights, Saturdays, there's services, lunch, chilling, hanging out with friends, and many, many programs every week. There's more than I can count every week. It's just an amazing place for religious and non-religious students to come and experience and connect with other Jewish students, and even non-Jewish students often come to our events. Right, so going into college, one of the things I knew is that there's a lot of anti-Israel sentiment on college campuses, and it's been going on for a long time. And so that was another thing that I needed to look at when going to college was, let's look at for a school that's going to have Israel programming, have Jewish programming, and kind of be able to kind of live the life that I want to live as a Jewish student as well as a Zionist.
So Aviva, you're jumping a little bit ahead because I first want to focus on the Jewish aspect. Can you share with us maybe a picture or something from a recent celebration so we can understand what kind of event and celebration we can see on on your specific campus?
Of course. So let's see the next slide. Here we are. So this was from the first night of Hanukkah this year at Hillel. We had over 100 students come in attendance. We did candle lighting, we had dinner, we played games like dreidel and other fun Hanukkah-related games, and did some learning related to what Hanukkah is and how we can take the principles from the story of Hanukkah into modern day. It's just beautiful to see people come together. A lot of the students I personally hadn't seen either before or didn't know because I'm only there on the weekends. And so it was just so nice to see so many new faces coming and partaking in Hanukkah. It's a really exciting holiday, and I love to see people engage in their religious or kind of just community need for a Jewish community. And then the other photo I wanted to share was from the last night of Hanukkah. These are one of the tables of Chanukias that Hillel had set up, and we came in light, and it was just really beautiful to see all the candles lit up at the end of the semester. It's really dark outside, and it just reminds me that there's always light when you look for it.
And in the Jewish tradition, it's the custom is to put the menorah or Chanukiah, the Hanukkah menorah, at the window, and in some way sharing this light with the world. The idea that we all are a little light, but how can we bring light to the world? And tell me, Aviva, on your campus, are there other groups for other students? So it's Jewish organization is the only organization, or there are other?
So we're really lucky at UMass. We have UMass Hillel, as well as we have a Chabad for Jewish students. We also have the Newman Center, which is for Catholic students if they want to have programming there or attend Mass on Sundays. We have a lot of student cultural organizations, such as the Black Student Union, the Indian Student Union, and many other student unions for students to come and connect with other students from the same background that they have.
And do you ever do things together to get to know each other customs and traditions?
There's a lot of opportunities, and a lot of events are open to a lot, like any student of different backgrounds. I know last year I got to do an event with Hillel and the Indian Student Union, kind of just share our similarities, share food, play lawn games. It was really fun to connect with the members of the Indian Student Union. We've done other events with some of the other student unions, but it's really just nice to connect with students of different backgrounds, because we all have very similar, like, shared experiences, as well as other very different experiences. And I think it's important, especially in college, to hear other people's stories, to be empathetic and be able to connect where you can, and listen and understand when you can't relate personally.
And I can tell you from my personal experience, my husband and I, when we were younger, we used to live in Madison, Wisconsin. My husband went to grad school and we lived in university housing. And we used to celebrate every holiday with so many people, and we met friends from all over the world. And I always call it like University of Life, because this is such a great opportunity living in America, having people from all of this background. Everybody, yes, we have the shared value of what America is, and we want to be this contributor citizen. But at the same time, we bring languages, cultures, religion, and all of that. And the fact that we can celebrate and teach each other, this is like one of the best ways. So I'm glad to hear that, first of all, you have your own like Jewish group, so you can get what you need for your own soul and spirituality, but you also have the opportunity to share it with other people, because this is, I think, one of the blessings of living in America and in the world today, that we can do that. So I do want to take us, I know that you kind of mentioned the piece about Israel, and you're also serving as the president of the Students Alliance for Israel. It's called SAFI. And I don't know if there's any other Students Alliance for Russia, or Students Alliance for China, or Students Alliance for other things. It came from a need on college campuses. It came from the fact that there was always this portraying Israel as like the villain, and also sharing lots of lies and putting it in a dark place, that there was a need to open this organization. So let me share with us maybe, first of all, why you joined, and now you're also a leader in this organization. What do you do in what I call like, it's not a normal time, but it's more like quieter when there is no war or any extreme war? What are the things that you're doing to kind of share Israel or do other things on campus with other students?
So as you mentioned, I'm the co-president of the Student Alliance for Israel at Umass. We also call it SAFI. SAFI was started at the late 2001 as a group, and became an official registered student organization with the university in early 2002. It came out of a need really during the second Intifada for a space for students to come together on campus, because of just all the kind of misinformation and anti-Semitism that students at UMass were experiencing during the second Intifada. Now, really during a quote unquote normal time, what I love about SAFI is we are not a political organization. We're not going to tell you pro one state or pro two state solution. We're pro peace. We're going to have you come, and we want to answer your questions. We want to say, okay, this is what the education you need to know to make the best decision for you. Where we draw the line is if you say Israel doesn't have the right to exist, then we're not really open to a conversation unless you come in from ignorance. If you come in from a more like an anti-Semitic perspective, then we're like, it's not productive to have this conversation because you've come in with preconceived notions. But if you come in open-minded, all of us are willing to have a conversation. And for me, that's kind of why I joined, was to come have a place to discuss with open-minded students about what's going on in Israel. There's so many nuances, and it's really hard to discuss them and understand them when you're not living there, or you're not connected as closely if like you have family there. And so I want to share some photos from our Israel Peace Week last year. This is probably the highlight of the SAFI year. Let me just pull them up. So these are a few photos from last year. So on the top left, that's me holding an Israeli flag and wearing a bucket hat that says Yalla. I'm on the campus lawn outside our library. And this was just a really fun day. It was beautiful outside. The sun was shining. It's a little windy. It was just, couldn't have asked for better weather. And what we did was we hosted, we call it a kind of Israel Peace Week and Artists for Israel. So what we did is we bring in this organization called Artists for Israel that works to promote peace through art. And so as you can see in the photo on the bottom left, this was us setting up this event. What we did is we had two artists from Artists for Israel. They're professional graffiti artists, and we gave out free t-shirts to students. They would then get what they wanted spray painted on the back and can wear it around campus, promoting peace and promoting Israel. While the students were waiting in line, we held the Humans of Tel Aviv art exhibit, which really showcases different ways of life in Israel. We also had tables for organizations like Birthright, JNF, Camera, and some of the other organizations. This, for me, is personally my favorite SAFI event. We're on campus, we're talking to people as they walk by. There's no real agenda. It's just having a fun time, making peace through art, and just being there, visible on campus, being proud of who we are. I just love the event, and it's something we've been doing every year, and I'm excited for it to happen this April.
And it's also very, very peaceful because, you know, we're going to jump in a little bit to after the war, and we see lots of protests in different universities and different cities around the United States and also in other parts of the world. And many of them are calling for violence. They're not calling for peace. They're not calling for people to live together. It's really very aggressive. And this is very different what we're seeing here, that you're all working together and thinking, how can we achieve peace? How can we bring this vision?
That's what I love about this, right? Like even in the photo, you can see it's very open. There's no walls. We're not in a room. There's no kind of confined space. It's an open event. Anyone can see us. Anyone can stop by and get a shirt. And so it's really nice to just be visible on campus to really promote peace, because that's what we're there for. We're there to really talk about how we can make peace in Israel, how we can promote education and combat anti-Semitism.
And what do we see on the right? We see with this.
So on the right, that was another part of our Israel Peace Week is, we call it Israel After Dark. We rent out a bar in Amherst and we put on a Tel Aviv style party. Students come and we have like lights and music, like Israeli music playing, and it's a really fun time. Our Israel fellow from a few years ago, she said that she felt like she was back in Tel Aviv. Last year, with our Israel Peace Week programming combined, we managed to engage over 300 students. And this was beautiful through just peaceful, welcoming events. And it was just really nice to have students from many different backgrounds come and partake in the festivities. And
for people that never had the opportunity to visit Tel Aviv, I was actually born in Tel Aviv. I go back and forth to Tel Aviv. For people that never had the opportunity to visit Tel Aviv, it's also called the city that never stopped, because there's always culturally so many exciting things going on. It's also known as like one of the 10 best cities in the world for LGBTQ. So it's very like lots of different bars and different shows and music shows and life and great beach and all of that. So for people that never been to, you know, I highly recommend at some point to get there. It's a very vibrant and very exciting city. And by the way, for those that are also not familiar, Tel Aviv, Jaffa are like part of the same city. And for those of you that don't know, over 20% of Israel population is Muslims and Christians and different minorities, and they are citizens within Tel Aviv and within Israel.
It's beautiful. Like when I'm in Tel Aviv and I'll walk along the sea, and you'll often hear the calls like on the big like microphones for the prayer calls at the mosque.
Yes. And yes, because there's like, the prayer, and also every street sign have signs in Hebrew, Arabic, and English, because these are like the official languages that are of the country. Yeah. So what do we see? What do we see? The little picture in the middle with the poster.
Perfect timing. I was going to get to that. So that is, I was tabling this past year at one of our like activities expos as part of a Umass Clubs Fair. And on our table, we have some Israeli flags. We have our poster board about Safi. And then we give out things like little bits of swag. We have like drawstring bags. We have sunglasses, like fun things like that. One of my favorites are pins that say peace in Hebrew, English, and Arabic. And so it's really nice to just be promoting peace. It doesn't say anything about Israel or the Middle East. It just says peace in 3 languages. And I think that's beautiful. The other thing that we have on the table are informational booklets. So we have them from different organizations. A lot of them do come from StandWithUs, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, but just really talking about different aspects of Israel. And I know, for example, we have one about LGBTQ rights in Israel and in Tel Aviv, and how welcoming Israel is for the LGBTQ plus community. And we have a lot of other booklets as well that touch on just kind of misinformation, and it's really short, sweet, and gets to the point of how can you have an educated conversation without spending hours and hours reading? What can you pick up in 5 minutes reading 3 or 4 different booklets? And I love that because it helps everyone be able to be a part of the conversation, to feel included. And I love tabling as well, whether it's in an activities expo, in the student union, or as part of Israel Peace Week, because I get to talk to people I might not normally talk to. And I'm really big on having conversations with people who might not agree with me, who come from a different place. And I think that that's how you promote peace. That's how you get education, is by having hard conversations, by, finding areas where you do agree. For example, I was tabling this past year, and this conversation, it was a very hard one, but I'm not going to go into it. But one of the best outcomes of it was this guy and I agreed that at the end of the day, we were both at UMass because we're students. We're here to get our education. And I just thought that was just a beautiful moment, that we were able to agree that we're both students, and that's why we're here. And I think that's just a really nice way to kind of start.
And there is a good place, for universities, to have conversation and learning from each other and misunderstanding. And the question, if it's really taking it to a place that can bring violence or can make one group feel unsafe or not comfortable. Do you see any of this kind of tabling or protest against any group on your college, for example?
I have not seen too much, and I think I've been very lucky that the administration at UMass has been supportive of all students at the campus and really doing a good job of walking a fine line of not trying to lean towards one group or the other, and really trying to have students' best interest at heart.
Yeah,
and I've been lucky that, I think that students are curious for the most part, and they want to, educate. I know I've gone to conferences, and they call it the 10-80-10 rule. So we say that there's 10% of people who are really pro-Israel. We have 10% of people who are really anti-Israel or pro-Palestinian or pro-something else. And then you have 80% of students, or the population in the middle, who don't have an opinion. And really, when I'm tabling, my goal is to reach those students, to reach the students who haven't heard of any of the, what an intifada is, don't know where Tel Aviv is. They don't know any of those things, or they have questions and they're uncomfortable asking because they feel like they don't know enough, and that, makes them inadequate in some reason, which is never the case. I think that every question is a good question, right? And I think if it comes from a place of curiosity, that it's amazing to watch people learn and get excited about learning new things and putting it in a global context.
Yeah, no, this is excellent. But I know, as we mentioned, like a normal time, even there is no normal time that, one country need to be like, stand like this is the most awful country in the world. And we can name so many other countries that are doing some horrible things, and nobody is talking about them, nobody hold them accountable. There is no discussion about them at all. This is for a different podcast on a different time. October 7th, the war in Israel started. And can you tell me how you felt on that morning, or how, some of the students that were with you, first of all, about like your own personal feeling?
Yeah, it's just really hard, right? The war started on Simchas Torah, which is a holiday of pure joy. Since I personally observe Shabbat and holidays, my phone was off, so I didn't actually know what was happening until I had gone to Hillel and was with some of my friends, and it was early Saturday morning, and one of our other friends stopped by, and she told us what had happened, and we were all a little bit in shock. I think for me personally, like in that moment, it wasn't real. I was still in holiday mode, but we're all starting to get worried because a lot of my friends have siblings in the IDF. I have a lot of friends as well in the IDF, and friends who are either studying in yeshiva or in university in Israel. My family was there at the time as well. And it was just very stressful, very kind of almost anxiety provoking, because there were so many unknowns, because I couldn't go on and, start reading news articles, start texting people. Once the holidays were over, that Sunday night, I have to say, it was very hard. I went back to my dorm, I turned back my phone on, called my mom first just to see how she was doing. And then I started reading the news. Oh, that was really hard. I think I cried for like hours straight, probably I think I just cried myself to sleep. It was so heartbreaking. It was so scary, waiting to hear back from friends as I wait for them to text. I had friends who I knew were in Gaza in that moment, who are some of the first troops to go in. And so I think it was just a lot of fear of the unknown, fear for my friend's safety, but also scaredness, because that was the first time that I, as a college student, was faced with the unknown on my campus. I didn't know what that Monday morning was going to bring. I didn't know what that week and going forward was going to happen, because, I've been really lucky at UMass. It's been very peaceful. It's been, pretty civilized. It's I've been really fortunate, and I know that's not the case at every university, but that was the point where I was like, okay, if something's going to happen, this is the kind of situation where things are going to start going downhill. So it was really hard. I have to say that I'm really fortunate. I am a Stand With Us Emerson Fellow. And so Stand With Us was founded by Roz and Jerry Rothstein and Esther Renzner in 2001 during the Second Intifada, kind of the same time as Safi. So, right, the Second Intifada brought a lot of need for Israel and Israel education. And so Stand With Us is an international nonprofit and nonpartisan organization that really works to educate and inspire people about Israel, as well as combat misinformation and fight anti-Semitism. In 2007, they started an Emerson Fellowship program, which I'm an Emerson Fellow. And so the goal of this program is to train, educate, and empower student leaders on college campuses. So I've been really fortunate that my advisor for Stand With Us has been amazing. I'll text him, call him, email, meet, just been around the clock. We've been working together. And so he was able to provide me with a lot of resources early on post October 7th. He sent overnighted like the booklets that I needed, information, helped me plan some events. And so I'm really grateful for some of this, the way Stand With Us has been able to support me and the rest of the Safi board during this time. I want to show a few photos about some of the events we put on and speak about just two of my events that I think were just beautiful and showed the need for a community during this war.
And I think for people that maybe are not familiar with the Jewish community or with Israeli students, to understand that this is like really the pain that, maybe we came to class and we couldn't really, student couldn't really function, or even some faculty couldn't really function. Because this is, I would look at it as the extended family. We are talking about, at that specific day, we didn't know how severe it is. Later on, we found out that over 1,200 people were slaughtered, killed, over 5,000 people were injured. We had about 240 people that were kidnapped. We didn't even know the vast horror of how people were tortured and burned and beheaded and raped. And only now kind of like the stories are coming and the horror that came with that time.
It's so bad. Like even that first day, that Monday, I was very fortunate. It was Columbus Day, or Indigenous Peoples Day. And so I didn't have classes because it's a federal holiday. And I actually went to Hillel because I just needed a place to be with community. I knew that I just couldn't be alone in my dorm room. And I sat there with friends all day, and a phone would ring and everyone would jump. Someone would answer it, and it would either just be like a sigh of relief of they found my friend's, a friend of a friend's sibling was missing. They found the sibling and it was relief. Someone else gets a call that a friend she was in seminary with had passed away. And right, just like that moment of just, you never knew it was on the other side of that phone call was awful. It was just that we went through so many boxes of tissues that day. It was really hard, but also something about breathing together and facing the unknown together was really important. But also it was really hard. All of us were just like, all right, Monday night, we have to go to sleep. And Tuesday morning, we have classes at 8 a.m. How in the world do you go to class when like your best friend just died, or your sibling is missing, or I don't know, a brother is fighting in the IDF, like things like that. That's what a lot of my friends are going through. And, I think it's something you can't relate to until you experience that. And even then I can't relate to it because I'm not in Israel. I'm not Israeli. And the Israeli experience versus the American experience is so different. It's so vastly different. And I think all I can do is just sit and listen to what my friends in Israel are going through, listen to my friends who know the hostages, who have lost friends in combat. And I think it's really hard. There's no right answer to the moment. I think for myself as a student leader, the goal is what can I do to bring people together? And I think like right in this photo on the left, this is
and Aviva, I would like to add to it, because you said very nicely, in some ways the empathy, it's like to listen and to be there. And I think that's what we were a little bit missing from so many people, that instead of coming and saying, checking, how are you doing? What's going on? Start blaming who is in charge and all of that. And I think that was also very painful for many of us. I have to say that I feel very thankful. I shared earlier like my time like in Wisconsin and meeting people from around the world. I received so many phone calls and so many texts and so many emails for so many friends. And I'm talking people that are Christians and Muslim and Buddhist and atheist and from Iran and from so many places around the world that I met over the years. First of all, checking how are you doing? Because they knew that I'm in pain, that I'm worried, that I'm terrified. And I think this is one of the things that currently I see it's a little bit missing, that people don't really take a step back and come and say, wow, this person is actually in lots of pain. Can I first of all ask, how are they doing? So the fact that, you took the time and came, let's listen. Yeah. It's the number one thing that I would say, if somebody take out of this, with our conversation, is what happened is like apathy and really caring for the person next to you and coming and screaming in the street without understanding that the person next to you is in so much pain. And instead of giving them a hug and supporting them, it's very, very much missing.
Right, like people don't need blame. Right, in my opinion, right, like this war is Hamas's fault. Like Hamas needs to take the blame for this. But in that moment, it's not the time to say, you did this or you did this, or explain why Hamas did it. In that moment, it's time for a hug. And then later we're going to say, this is Hamas's fault. They need to be held accountable for the mass murder of many innocent civilians, both Israelis and Palestinians, right? This is because of Hamas, not because of any of the students who are going through something right now. They need a hug. They don't need to listen to your lecture. They don't need to listen to someone who just decided to be educated for the first time. They need a hug. They need you to sit and listen to what they're going through, not your own thoughts. And I think that was something I did see a lot of within the Jewish community, definitely. It was really nice that everyone was just there for each other. No one questioned it if someone walked up and just put their arms out open and just took a hug. You would just respond with a big warm embrace. If someone just started tearing up, you'd go grab a tissue and hand it. Like there was no questions asked. And I think that was really special. It's something I'd never experienced before, really just seeing all of a sudden with like a quick snap of your fingers, a community just all of a sudden coming together so quickly. We knew we were together, but I'd never seen it so strong. And so in this photo on the screen on the left is a vigil that Safi put together just a few days after October 7th. We had over 250 students and community members, faculty members in attendance. And what we came together was just unity, to stand together as a community, to stand together to support this people in Israel, and just to find and grieve and find community, grieve together and hold that space. Funnily enough, this is actually the exact space where a few moments ago, I showed you this photo from Israel Peace Week. It was in the exact same spot. And so one place can hold so much joy and so much pain at the same time. And they don't negate each other, but it's just, to me, to be able to hold both at the same time. So in the photo there, I am giving the speech. On the top right, we had taken little electric tea light candles and put them in the shape of a Magen David, the Star of David. And then we made a chai out of the candles as well. And it was beautiful. This was at night, so they lit up really nicely and you could see it from around the circle. On that bottom right is a photo of one half of the circle. The students were holding an American and Israeli flag together. I thought that was a beautiful moment of unity. I really just love that photo, seeing that you can be multiple things at once, like standing together in unity. This is a moment of unity, not for politics, not for anything else. It's for holding pain and holding each other together. And I think it was a beautiful night. I have to say a lot of it was a haze for me. And then I got the photos after, and all of a sudden it started coming and I realized what I had seen. I think just trying to get through it. It's really hard to be a student leader because I also had my own pain and I was still processing it and somehow also needed to bottle it down so I could deliver a speech. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to start just sobbing in the middle of a speech because then I won't finish. And so it's always just, how do I put my community and also hold myself at the same time? And so it's definitely a struggle. And then you add classes and other things on top of that. Some days I think, I don't know how I do it. And other days I'm really proud of what I can accomplish.
Yeah. And it was very hard. And I know that, for example, the staff at the Hillel organization worked very, very hard because parents were calling, students were calling, new students, how to work with the university, how to make sure that what we saw in other universities, like at Harvard or Penn or in Columbia, you won't see on college campuses in UMass. And I think that UMass in general was much, I would say the way university should be, like a safe place for all students that you feel comfortable and without interrogating anyone or putting a group as to blame about something that's happening 5,000 miles away.
It says a lot about our Hillel staff, right? They've been amazing. They've always been amazing. They've been really fantastic and really on top of it since October 7th. For example, that vigil I showed the photo of, we planned that in less than 24 hours, literally less than a day we had to do this. And we kind of came up with the plan and we go to the staff and say, we're doing this, we need your help. And they were like, okay, what can we do to help you? And that was just amazing to have the support because of how quick the turnaround was. Normally when planning an event, we do 2 to 4 weeks. Israel Peace Week, for example, for this April, I've been planning it since September. And so, right, like most things take time. And the fact that we were able to pull this together, have as high of a turnout as we did, right, more than 250 students in less than 24 hours, just really says, one, the ability that Safi and Hillel staff have, and just the need for the event. The other thing that Safi did was I worked with, in addition to, I'm part of it's called the Hillel International Israel Leadership Network. So I put out in our group chat asking if anyone wanted to collaborate with me on an event. And this girl, she's also an Emerson Fellow with Stand With Us as well. She's at San Jose State University in California. So we had Umass Safi and San Jose State University's students for supporting Israel, SSI chapter, collaborated, and we hosted on Zoom, an Israeli soldier, the sibling of a soldier who had died in combat. This woman's story is amazing. She and her commander threw themselves in front of a tank and an exploding grenade and saved the rest of their troop. The 2 of them unfortunately passed, but the entire rest of the troop did live. And then we also host the third speaker was this man, him and his girlfriend survived the Nova Party massacre. And so just hearing those stories and bringing people from the West Coast to the East Coast and everywhere in between was just a really powerful experience. I think we had 35, maybe 40 students and community members attending on Zoom to hear the story in Israel. And so we just had all these different places coming together. And so unfortunately, there's a lot of bad things about war. War is not good. A lot of people have died. A lot of people are hurt. I'm sure Israel's not going to be the same for a while, if ever. But at the same time, there's so many ways to come together, to be a community, to rely on resources like Stand With Us, like Hillel, all the other things. And so I'm very fortunate to have the networks that I do have.
Yeah, and I do hope that we will get to the point that we don't need this kind of organization, because so people will look at Israel as another country like Italy or France or other places, that enough people will have the opportunity to actually go and visit and study and learn what Israel is actually about and some of the values of Israel that are actually being taught, in a false way, and unfortunately in false way in some of the university by some of the professor, because there is some agenda to put Israel in this way. And that's unfortunate that it's been for over 20 years, over 2 decades, and we see the pain in college campuses, and that's very unfortunate. So I do hope that in some point we won't need those, because enough people will understand and learn, and we won't allow also this kind of professor and this kind of knowledge that it's false knowledge, full with lots of hate and lies, to be dominant and kind of brainwash people with all of these lies. So I hope that we won't get to it. And I know, Aviva, that you came to be a student. You are doing so many things. Or as we said, you came to get college. I'm a student. I should be in class right now.
Yeah, I was in a meeting with our administration, and I'm talking to them, and I start the meeting, and they're like, "Thank you so much for being here." And I'm like, well, "Thank you for having us," but also it was during finals week, and I was just like, I should be studying right now. I should be in class. I shouldn't be needing to be in this meeting right now. I really shouldn't. But also, I was grateful to have the opportunity. But right, like every day, I'll be sitting in class, and I'll get a bazillion WhatsApp messages or texts or emails related to Israel, people needing help, people saying, did you see this on campus? How do I respond? It's a never ending cycle. And so it's really hard to be a student. It's also hard when it's not just other people, it's your own emotions that have to get processed. But right, like, as I mentioned, I'm lucky I have a network. I have an amazing Stand With Us advisor. I have funding from Stand With Us to put on the events to bring communities together. I have ways to bring other experts to come to campus and talk about ways to combat misinformation. And so I'm lucky, but also part of me is just like, there shouldn't be a need for this, right?
Yeah.
I should be able to go to school and be a college student and focus on school. And I think it's really hard because I'm very proud of the work I've done. I'm proud of my position as a Stand With Us Emerson, but I'm also really sad that that's something that I need to do.
That it's needed. And in some way, I want us to send this message for all of the leadership in universities, not all over the world, to make sure that their universities are safe for students to go and study, to make sure that in any department, whenever they're hiring any professor, they're not teaching lies. In the case of Israel, we know it because we understand it very well, but it's always make me think, are there other departments that are being funded and there are some people teaching lies about other topics that we are not as knowledgeable about to know for sure that these are lies, that because I know from my personal experience that certain things that are being taught are not factual. So this is like a message for all of the university leaders, and also for every student to come and say, focus on your study, focus on getting to know your fellow students and their cultures and traditions and other things, and care for each other. Like, this is like the most important thing, and don't allow for something that happened too far to make you aggressive on somebody on your college or in the street that actually maybe has nothing to do with that. And this is like a way to take your frustration and all of this aggression through the person that is not responsible and shouldn't be stand as responsible. This is what we see. And I know, Aviva, you prepared one last slide, something that I don't know if you're proud of or you like, but it's like showing all of the multiple identities that you have, like in one specific,
of course,
typical or atypical day, but kind of like to send like a message to our students and to finalize with that.
So I'm going to share two really quick slides. One of them is just this reminder of you can always find the good, even in a really, really unfortunate situation. This photo is our last Shabbat of the fall semester. It was also Hanukkah at the same time. This is kind of the middle to end of finals week, and people came together. The semester was winding down, and this was a photo of Havdalah, the ceremony to end Shabbat. And people were there smiling, dancing, singing. It was just a very ruach, very noisy, joyous filled time. And it just always fills me with pride to see that we were able to come together. We were able to end the semester on a positive note. My campus isn't immune to the rise in anti-Semitism on college campuses across the country since October 7th. But even despite the pain that every single person in that photo and those who are not pictured has as a student, we were able to come together and just have a beautiful, joyous moment. And I think
I encourage Aviva people that, the viewer that are not Jewish or they never met a Jew. Jews are about 2% of American population. And if they've never had the opportunity to come to some of these events and to meet fellow Jews and to learn from them, and as you shared, we already spoke about several events that have light in them. We always think about how can we bring light to the world through our action in a positive way. And we have so many rituals to bring this. So I highly recommend for people, the same way that I like to get to meet people from different faiths and different traditions, to just get to know each other.
Right, and even in there that night, there were non-Jewish students there who had spent the day with us and were part of the Havdalah ceremony. But really, I think the main takeaway I want for college students, educators, and anyone listening is really, you don't have to pick one thing. So I want to share the story behind this photo. I think this summarizes my life in a nutshell. So this was a Friday in October. I woke up, I got ready, and I had a meeting with some people from Stand With Us. After that meeting, I went to class. I then left class and went to Hillel to run a mashgichim, the overseers of our kitchen to make sure it stays kosher. I also am the student kitchen manager at Hillel, so I also was running a student kitchen safety training. So it's kind of a joint training. I ran that at Hillel. Then I left and went to a food science event. This was the scholarship luncheon where I got an award. I ended up having to leave that early, sprinted across campus in business clothes to go take an exam. After the exam, I rushed back to my dorm, got ready for Shabbat, and then went to Hillel to oversee Shabbat dinner and serve students. I think that night we had over 100 students in attendance. It was a beautiful Shabbat. And then, right, I think just this photo summarizes it all, right? You can see I'm in very nice clothes. I have a backpack on, a winter coat. In the brown bag is my kosher lunch. And the yellow padded envelope is the award I got. And I think you don't have to give up one identity over the other. You can be Jewish and a food scientist. You can be a Zionist and any type of major. You're not giving up one identity for the other, and it often feels like that. But I think remembering that at the end of the day, if you're proud of who you are, if you stand strong in the face of adversity, things are going to come together, right? You don't have to give up one part of yourself. And in this photo, it reminds me that my life is often hectic. I'm often doing many things in one day that are not just food science or just Israel or just Jewish related. It's often everything intertwined. And yet I'm able to do it all. Yes, it does take a lot of time management, but everything comes together, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of that I'm able to be confident and able to be who I am without feeling that I'm giving up a different part of myself, because I know that's a struggle for many students. So my message to those listening is just keep going, find the light in your darkness, and be proud of who you are.
Yeah. And this is a lovely way, I think, to conclude, Aviva. But before that, I want to ask you, is there any question that you want me to ask you, or any other thing that you want to share? Or you feel that we kind of...
It was just an amazing thing. I think the biggest thing I'd love to just chat with you more, if you have insight as well, is really, how do we find that connection, right? As students going from students, right? I'm a junior, I'm going to graduate in a year. What do we do after we graduate? How do we find the community, right? I know you're involved in many different community things, but right, for me personally, what are some next steps I can take to continue networking with Jewish and Israeli communities, as well as continue to be a strong woman in STEM and a proud food scientist?
So I would say let's keep this one for a different kind of podcast or a different kind of conversation over coffee, because this is like, it's a big question, and you're in such a great time in your life as the young adult. I like to look at it as like the citizen of the world. What kind of citizen we want to raise, and I think you're raising a good question. How am I continue to be involved as a citizen? It's not ending when I'm in high school. It's not ending when I'm in college. How am I contributing and doing? And there are so many ways that we can do that. I only wish that more and more citizens will be like you and feeling this way, that they want to learn and achieve, bring good things, goodness to the world, spread more light, connect with other people. I think this is very important. And there are many, many different ways of doing that. And I'm happy to continue that. And for all of our viewers, I want to thank again Aviva for joining us. Aviva Stein, a student at Umass Amherst, and I'm Rachel Raz at Education in Time of War. And I hope you will join us on other podcasts. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Aviva, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me and for listening.